So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming down. All right, so the title of the lecture tonight is, I think you all know, and hopefully you've seen it and you've heard it, and you know what it's all about. That's why you came. The title of the lecture is Walk a Mile in My Shoes. What does that mean? That means before you judge, before you pass judgment on another person, you understand their position. In other words, you judge them favorably. You walked in here today, you saw a lot of friends and you were happy to see them. Maybe you saw a few enemies too, that I don't know. But you saw a lot of friends and you went up to them, you hugged them, you were happy to see them. You also saw people you've never seen before. Let's be honest. You took one look at them, you instantly made a judgment about them. You knew instantly by looking at them, the second you saw them, what kind of person they were. You knew because of the way they looked, because of the way they smiled, the way they frowned, the way they were acting, the way they were standing, how they were interacting with others. Some, maybe you spend a little more time looking at, you have a better an idea and you've passed more judgment about them. But the others, everybody. That's why we say first impressions are so important. So we should know that that is human nature. So therefore, we have to be careful about the first impression that we make. However, we must not fall into that trap. We should not be the ones to be judging people because we saw them for a split second. We saw them for 30 seconds. We know absolutely, positively nothing about them. Yet we've judged them. It says in Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers, Yehoshua ben Perahia Omer. Yehoshua, the son of Perahia, says a few things, and the one I'm going to quote now is Hewedan et kol ha'adam lechaf zechut. Judge every man. That's what the Mishnah says. Every man, we'll touch on that later, every man favorably. So it says you must judge every man favorably. It reminds me of a joke that I heard. Can I tell it to you? Yeah. These two friends just walked out of synagogue on Shabbat morning. They prayed and they came out. What do they see when they come out? They see another friend of theirs who certainly makes out like he's very religious. He dresses religiously, he speaks religiously, he behaves religiously, he's always in synagogue. Here on Shabbat, they come out of synagogue, and what do they see? They see him running frantically after a taxi, flailing his arms, trying to stop the taxi to stop for him. So one of them says to the other, I thought he was religious. Look at this, he's trying to hail a taxi on Shabbat. His friend says, listen, I don't know. I was at a shiur the other day, and they said, it was in Kolbe, I think, they said that you have to judge everybody favorably. So therefore, I am going to try and find a reason why he's doing this, why he's running after the taxi and trying to stop him. He says, you know what? He says, what? He says, maybe he's sick. He wants to go to hospital. His friend said, he's sick? The guy's running 25 miles per hour after a taxi, he's sick? He says, he's more fit than I am. That can't be the reason. That's not why he wants to stop the taxi. He says, okay, but I'm not giving up. There has to be a reason why we can say that he has to be judged favorably. So, I got it. He says, I got it. I've been thinking about it. I got it. His wife just gave birth. The friend says, nice try. She gave birth a week ago. And it takes longer than a week to get another kid. I didn't know that. I found out when I read this joke. So he said, okay, I got it. He's going to visit her in hospital. He said, she came back 5 days ago. Nowadays, they only let you stay 2 days. The guy's getting a little bothered now. He's trying to find a reason to justify the fact that this apparently religious friend of theirs is trying to stop a taxi on Shabbat. So he says, okay, you're saying that His wife gave birth, and she's at home. He needs to get a doctor. So that's what he's doing. He's running after the taxi to get a doctor. The friend says, he is a doctor. He says, I don't know. I'm running out of ideas. I got it. He needs medical supplies. Needs medical supplies. You know, new baby, mother just gave birth, needs medical supplies. He said, the pharmacy is in the other direction. So he's about to give up, but he says, you know, I can't. I was at the shiur, and I really have to find a reason. He says, I got it. He says, what? He forgot that it was Shabbat. It happens. It happens to all of us, right? You've never ever turned on a light by mistake on Shabbat? You forgot at that moment it's Shabbat. He forgot it's Shabbat. The friend said, he didn't forget it's Shabbat. He says, how do you know? He says, look at how he's dressed. Look at that fancy silk tie that he's wearing. Christian Dior. He never wears that tie during the week. He only wears that when it's Shabbat. The friend says, I didn't even notice his tie. He says, you didn't notice his tie? You didn't notice that it was caught in the back bumper of the taxi? That's all, folks. That's all I have for tonight. You can go home now. All right. I quoted you Pirkei Avot. I quoted you the ethics of the fathers. But that's not the source of the commandment to judge favorably. Let's look at it. We're going to Sefer Vayikra. It says, Lo ta'asu awel b'mishpat. You must not do anything. You mustn't do any unrighteousness, if that's a word, in judgment. Lo tisa pnei dal. You shall not raise or respect the face of the poor. Velo te'dar pnei gadol. And you must not honor the face of someone important. Besedek tishpot amitecha. Rather, in righteousness, you will judge your neighbor. What does this mean? Well, let's continue before we look at what this means. This appears to be only about judging people. It continues, poor people, rich people, important people. It says, Lo tisnei achicha bilbabecha. You shall not hate your brother in your heart. Hocheach tochiach et amitecha. You shall surely reproach your neighbor. Velo tisa alo het. And you shall not, there's different ways of translating this, but you shall not, on his account, carry a sin. Lo tachom velo tetor. You shall not bear a grudge, and you shall not avenge et bnei amecha, any of your people. And then, of course, one of the most famous expressions from the Torah, ve'ahavta l're'acha kamocha, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. The Gemara of Shavuot, the Talmud Bavli, learns 4 different laws from these Pesuchim. 4 different laws. The second of which, I'm not going into all of them now, but the second of which is that you shall judge your neighbor favorably. I want to tell you a story from the Gemara of Shabbat. The Gemara of Shabbat. Apparently, this is between Rabbi Akiva, who was the employee, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanos, 2 greats, of course, who was the employer. It tells us that our rabbis teach us that whoever judges his neighbor favorably is judged favorably himself by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A very, very important concept. If we judge another person favorably, that is how God deals with us. Maybe we'll speak a little more about that later. The story goes like this. It says, there was a man who came from the upper Galilee. And he was hired by a man in the south. I told you who apparently these people are. Erev Yom Kippur, on the eve of Yom Kippur, after working for him for 3 years, the employee comes to the employer and says, please give me my salary, my wages, so that I can take care of my wife and children. What did the employer say? He's worked for him for 3 years now. I don't have any money. What would you think if your employer told you that? So he said, okay, then give me some produce. What did the employer say? I don't have any. And he says, okay, give me land. What does he say? I don't have any. He says, all right, give me cattle. He says, I don't have any. I don't know what you'd be thinking by this point. He says, all right, so give me what you have in the house on the beds, you know, the bedding, the pillows, the sheets, the blankets. He says, I don't have any. So he took his things, I guess he put them over his shoulder and went home, obviously feeling terrible. Erev Yom Kippur. After all the holidays, after the festivals, the employer took this man's salary with 3 donkeys full, one with food, one with drink, one with various ma'adanei olam, beautiful foods, and went to the worker's house. They sat together, they ate, and they drank. After they ate and drank, the employer said to the employee, when you asked me to give you your salary, and I said, I don't have any money, what did you suspect me of? He said, I thought maybe you found some merchandise at a great deal, you know, you got a great deal, and you bought all of it, and you didn't have any money. He says, okay, when you asked me to give you cattle, and I said I didn't have, what did you think? He said, I thought that maybe you hired out your cattle to others. I said, okay. What about when you said, give me land? And I said, I don't have any. What did you suspect me of? He says, I thought maybe you leased it to other people. He says, but then you asked me if I have any produce, and I said, no. What did you think? He said, I thought perhaps the tithes, the ma'aser, had not been taken. He says, and when I told you I don't have any pillows, sheets, blankets, comforters, what did you think? He says, I thought maybe you dedicated all of it to the Beit HaMikdash and you couldn't give it to me. He said to him, that's exactly right, because I vowed away, I made a neder to give all that I have, all my property, to the Beit HaMikdash on account of my son Hyrcanus, who is not following in the path of the Torah. So the idea was that this would be everything that Hyrcanus would inherit. So he gave it all away to the Beit HaMikdash, and therefore he had no right to touch any of it again. He says, but then I went to the other Hachamim, my confreres, as it were, in the south, and they annulled my vow. And that's why now he was able to do it. And he said, and as far as you're concerned, just as you judged me favorably, so too HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, will judge you favorably. This is a very, very important lesson, because I don't think there'd be too many people who would give the employer, okay, he happened to know that he was a very good man, But I don't think there would be too many people who would give their employer, after 3 years of working for him dedicatedly, this kind of judgment in his heart. And as a result, we see what the Gemara tells us is that God would then treat him the same way. I want to tell you something. I'm going to speak about myself. If I ever make an assumption about something, when a situation occurs, and I try to guess what took place, I'm always wrong. And I think I'm reasonably intelligent. When I look at a situation and I'm not happy with what happened, and I try to figure out what happened, and I even talk to people, and we sit together and we try and figure out, we're usually wrong. And the more certain I am, the more I know I'm wrong. Therefore, I don't do it anymore. I gave up on it because I found repeatedly it was always some kind of explanation that didn't fit at all with what I could have imagined. Always ask before making any assumptions. Even if it seems obvious, even if it seems clear, ask. Because when you start making assumptions, what happens is those assumptions become truths, hardened truths in your mind. They're no longer assumptions. They're fact. Because you made an assumption. And like I say, my experience is that almost invariably, the more certain you are that you're absolutely right, the more likelihood there is that you're absolutely wrong. I want to tell you another story. It's a true story that somebody told me some years ago. The man who told me this, the story, had a daughter who was married to a man who had a very successful job, high flyer, literally flying all over the world, doing very well. They lived in different countries. He was always being transferred. Then, after some time, something happened and he lost the job. We're not quite sure why. They weren't quite sure why, but they knew that he lost the job. So they moved back to America. The father said to the daughter, obviously, he's looking for something else. In the meantime, it's probably a little bit difficult. Would you all like to move into the house? She spoke to the husband, and he was, you might think he'd feel awkward, but no, he was very happy. So they moved in. Okay. So they're all living in this house. One day the daughter goes for a shower. She removes her jewelry. She had a ring which was a family heirloom and very, very expensive. It was her grandmother's, great-grandmother's, I don't know. It was a family heirloom. Very expensive ring. She took it off for the shower and then came out. When she came out, right away, the cleaning lady went in. After a little while, she realizes she doesn't have a ring. She goes running to the bathroom. It's gone. Nobody else could have taken it. She was there. As soon as she walked out, the cleaning lady walked in. I don't know how many years the cleaning lady had been with them, but they confronted her. She denied it. Of course, what's she going to say? She's going to say, yeah, I stole it. And to the best of my knowledge, they got rid of her. Sometime later, the father gets a phone call from the bank. The manager saying, Mr. So-and-so, would you mind stopping by? I want to discuss something with you. He said, sure. No, some financial, maybe a new deal, I don't know what. He goes, the bank manager takes him into the office and he sits him down and he asks him a question which is very irregular for a bank manager. He says, Mr. X, is everything okay between your daughter and son-in-law? He's positively shocked by this question. He said, I think so. Why? He said, well, there have been instances of fraud with your daughter's account. And we've investigated, and we found that your son-in-law has been forging checks and doing other things with credit cards and so on. The father says, I thank you. Didn't go into any more details. They went home, and they all sat down with the son-in-law trying to find out what was going on and what had been going on. And then suddenly, while they were talking, the father had an epiphany. He said to the son-in-law, what did you do with the ring? He said, I sold it. Then they found out a whole bunch of other things that had happened, not just financial things, other improprieties. The end of the story is that the young couple got divorced. I don't know what happened with the cleaning lady. I don't know. But you see, we can be so sure, yet the truth is the exact opposite. So, does this mean now we have to trust everybody? Give everybody the benefit of the doubt? Our rabbis tell us something very interesting. People should always be like thieves in your eyes, but you must honor them like Rabban Gamliel. What does this mean? There's a story about, a famous story, many of you know, Rabbi Yehoshua. A traveler came to his house, to his home, and he let him in. And he probably gave him food and drink, and they sat together at the table, whatever. And he said, yes, certainly you can sleep here the night. And he treated him with a lot of respect. And at night, there was, they had an attic. It was quite common in those days, where guests could sleep, and there was a bed up there or whatever he needed up there. And they had a ladder, not permanent stairs. It's just a ladder that's attached to the attic. And he probably went up with the guest, showed him where he should sleep, etc. The guest goes upstairs to the attic. However, at night, Rabbi Yehoshua removes the ladder. Doesn't say anything, doesn't tell the man. He just removes the ladder. At night, when he thinks everybody's asleep, the man goes around upstairs and steals anything of any value. And then, I guess it was dark, no electric lights in those days, he's going to make a quick getaway. He goes down the ladder. The ladder's not there. Wham! He falls to the floor and injures himself. So he's still lying there in the morning. Rabbi Yehoshua gets up and sees the man lying there. He says, you fool. We had our suspicions. What did he do? He honored him like a guest. But he was careful with him as if he was a thief. And in this case, he really was. So how does this fit in with what we are told to do? B'tzedek tishpot amitecha. You have to, as we said, we quoted the verse, you have to judge your people, your neighbor, with tzedek, with righteousness. This seems to be a contradiction. If you're going to judge everybody with righteousness, here you're treating him like a thief. Even though you're treating him honorably, you're treating him like a thief. There seems to be a contradiction. So it seems to me that we have to break this down, based on what our rabbis tell us, into 3, maybe 4 categories. So the 2 obvious ones that the rabbis tell us is if a person is a tzaddik or a rasha. If a person is righteous, completely righteous, this person has always been known to do the right thing. If he does something that is plain to see that it's wrong, no doubt in your mind that it's wrong, you are not permitted to think that he did something wrong. On the contrary, you must judge him favorably. Because you think you know everything. Even though you saw him, I don't know, shoot somebody. I don't know what you saw him do. You don't know the story. You don't know what happened. You didn't walk a mile in his shoes. You don't know anything about it. He has always proved himself to be honorable, trustworthy, righteous. Then whatever happened, you have an obligation to judge him favorably. A rasha, a wicked person, always doing the wrong thing, always going against the Torah. There's nobody who only does bad. Once in a while he's going to do something good, right? We're told, if you see a rasha doing something good, you must not judge him favorably. You must assume he's up to no good, even when he does something good. But then, there's a couple of other categories which kind of are difficult to separate in a way. You've got what I would call the benoni, the in-between. It might make a difference whether he's done more good things or more bad things. But let's just say overall he's done good things and he's done bad things. Maybe 50-50. This is different. Why is it different? You know, he's already done something bad. You've seen him do something bad. He's done good too, but he's done something bad. Why shouldn't I judge him as having done something bad? I remember once speaking about this. I remember many years ago in yeshiva, I was having trouble with the concept of the shora mu'ad, of an ox that has a hazakah. It is considered to be an animal that gores. It's gored 3 times, it's been warned, and this ox has special rules that apply to it. We're much more strict about it, about the ox with its owner. But I had a difficulty with that. I'm a smart guy. I say, what difference does it make if it did it 3 times or once? I remember saying to the rabbi giving the shiur, you want to tell me, because I'm smart, you know, you want to tell me that the Ab Beit Din, the head of the religious court, would allow his little son to be in the corral, in the pen, with an ox that gored once? He said, no, of course not. But still, it's not the same as an ox that is known to gore. It did it once. A person sometimes has done something wrong. Who hasn't, right? But you can't say that person will always do something wrong. So that is a different category. You cannot put them in the category of a rasha. And the truth with that is that really you should also judge this person positively. And then there's the unknown. A person you've never met before, like in the story of Rabbi Yeshua. So there the concept of kabedehu, v'hoshedehu, honor him, but suspect him, can rightfully apply. That means you treat him with respect, you treat him well, but you've got to be a little smart. You don't know. He's an unknown quantity. Be a little smart about what you're doing. According to Rambam, in the Sefer HaMisvot, one is obligated to judge a friend favorably. But he says to judge a stranger favorably is an act of piety. So in other words, he seems to think it's good, but it means you're being pious. All right. Hillel said in Pirkei Avot various things, but one of them is Al tadin et haberecha ad shetageh lemkomo. Don't judge your friend till you get to his place. Don't say, I would not have done what he did. I can't believe he did this. Did you see what he did? And then you tell your friends, do you know what he did? Can you imagine this guy did that? He says, don't say that till you've been in his shoes. You've walked in his shoes. On the contrary, what would you do if you had done what he did? Well, what would you do if something if you were called out on doing something wrong, I tell you, if you're a human being, if you're above that, that's a different matter. But if you're like the rest of us, you will start justifying it. Yes, but, I have a reason for it. You don't understand. This happened, that happened, the other thing. He says, yes, very good. Those are the excuses you have to make for your neighbor. All those excuses that you would have made for yourself, those are the excuses you have to make for your neighbor. So, when you listen to the news and you hear a politician being quoted, something negative, what is usually the thing they say? They say, what I said was taken out of context. If you saw the whole interview, you would know it was out of context. The reality is, when we judge another person, we're almost always judging them out of context, because we don't know the whole story. We don't know what happened before. We don't know what happened afterwards. It's like reading a book, or even better, you're watching a video of a rabbi. People don't watch videos from beginning to end anymore. I don't know if you know that. Very rarely. They watch a word in the beginning, they move it to the middle, they move it to the end. I watched it. Okay, very good. You happen to just see one thing in the middle of this video. The rabbi is saying, I enjoy lying, I enjoy cheating, I enjoy hurting people, I enjoy lashon hara, I enjoy... This guy, you turn it off, and immediately you're repeating it to everybody else. Yeah, but you got it out of context. He's repeating what somebody said to him. And this man came to me and he said, I enjoy lying, I enjoy cheating, and I enjoy this. And then I told him, but you didn't see that. It's out of context. That's the problem. When we start judging people, for the most part, we're judging them out of context. So we don't even have the facts. We only have a little bit. I myself realized many years ago that you've got to have a lot of patience if you want to judge anyone and anything. I don't judge. I try not to. I certainly don't want to be a judge. When somebody would come to me, even till today, but now I know, and tell me, because maybe there's a problem, I have a husband and wife, partners in business, whatever, and tell me about a problem they're having with their partner. You would know when the person says, Kavod Harab, believe me, I tried, I did this, I did that. But the other one, you won't believe what they said, what they did. You won't believe it. Your heart goes out for them. You feel so bad because they're such good people, and the other side is just so bad. But you have to hear the other side. You're not allowed to make judgment based on listening to one party. You're not allowed to do that. And when the other person comes, and you hear the other person, sometimes it's a 180-degree retreat. But for sure, if it's not 180 degrees, it's not the same anymore. It's a different story. The facts are completely different. And here we are, we judge somebody based on what we think that person did. And we have no idea about the other side of the story. All we're going on is what we saw in our eyes. Now, Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu writes, he says, in this pasuk that we quoted before, where it said, I'll just read it for you again, Lo tisa penei dal. First of all, it says, Lo ta'asu awed. You mustn't do something that's not part of righteousness when it comes to judging. Lo tisa penei dal. You mustn't raise the face of the poor. Velo te'dal penei gadol. And you mustn't honor the important person. Besedek tishpot amitecha. But you shall judge your neighbor with righteousness. He says the following. He says there's something else we can learn from that. He says, Lo tisa penei dal. Don't raise or honor the face of the poor man. He says this is also talking about you, not just about him. What do you mean? What do you mean it's also talking about you? He says the following. You'll say, I have a lot of reasons why I did that. It's not my fault. That's how I was brought up. My mother, my father, my sister, my brother, my work, my circumstances, my money, my this, my that. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. You always find reasons to justify what you do. Why? Because I'm a poor miskin. I'm a poor guy. He says, no, 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 no. Don't look for excuses. Also, don't honor the important person. Don't say about yourself, listen, my position is different. I'm an important person. You know, I have to consider other circumstances. He says, stop it. You're making excuses. When it says, "Besedek tishpot amitecha," that with righteousness you have to judge your people, he says this applies to you also. You have to do a heshbon nefesh. You have to be honest with yourself as to how you're behaving. So this pasuk not only comes to tell us that we shouldn't judge others, but it also tells us that we maybe should be judging ourselves a little more honestly than we do. Typical example, a guy goes to synagogue every day, and there's another guy who comes late every morning. Every morning this person comes late to synagogue. Every morning, no exception to the rule. So what do you think? This guy is always late. Everyone's talking about him. They're all talking about him. Hey, he's late again. Look at today. He's even 4 minutes later than yesterday. 1 minute. If you were late, what would you say? You would say, I had my reasons. My wife has to go to work. I know normally she would be the one, but she's working very hard. We're trying to make ends meet, and she has to leave before me, so sometimes the bus comes late. Maybe something else. You'll have a lot of reasons to justify why you do it. That's what you have to do with the other guy. When you see he comes in late, you don't say, why is he late? If you want to look for a reason, find a good reason. I, on the other hand, am in awe of people who go every day to synagogue, because there are an awful lot of people who don't. And I think that has to be the first thing. Okay, he comes late. But you know what? He comes every day. This is something remarkable. And really, I am in awe. There are some people I would not expect it, ever. And they come every single day. I want to tell you another story. The Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, alav shalom, tells. He says, one Shabbat, he went to a synagogue where there was a bar mitzvah. A very important bar mitzvah, I think a very important family, very wealthy family in Israel. And at some point, in walks the father and the bar mitzvah boy. And oh boy, is the father dressed well, expensive Italian suits, designer brands, designer ties, not the one that was caught in the taxi, a different one. That one got messed up. Designer ties, designer shoes, probably his undershirt too, but he couldn't tell. The son, no less. Designer shoes, designer this, designer hat, you name it. They walk in, splendid. They go to their seats, sit down. The father opens his seat bag, the bag of the Talit Gadol, takes it out, and puts it on. Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu says he was staring at him. Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu was staring at the man. He says he's coming looking resplendent with these new clothes, and he's put on this old tzitzit, this old talit katan that is frayed and yellow and a little dirty. And he looks at him. Okay, the prayer is over. The man comes up to Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, alav shalom, and he says, Kavod Arav, it's a very great honor that you're here with us today. But can I ask you, when I walked in, you looked at me for a good minute. What was going through your mind? He said, I'll tell you. He said, I see you walked in with this beautiful suit, with these beautiful shiny shoes, your son the same, unbelievable, you must have spent a fortune. He says, and what did you, and then I saw that you put on this old yellow frayed talit gadol. He says, Kavod Arav, what did you think? He said, what did I think? I said to myself, for sure, you bought a beautiful new talit gadol. You know, there are different grades. You bought the fanciest, the most expensive. And you were running late coming to synagogue because there was a lot going on, and maybe you had to carry the candies. Obviously it was in the Eru because they carried the tzitzit. He says you had to carry the this, you had to carry the that, and there's probably pandemonium in the house, and you were running late, and you wanted to make sure your son got here on time, so you ran out, you grabbed your tzitzit bag, you grabbed the talit gadol, but you took the wrong one, and you didn't realize, you don't live across the street, you came to the synagogue, And when you opened it, you saw your mistake, but it was too far, and you'd be late. You wouldn't go back home. He says, Kevod Rab, I want you to know that's exactly what happened. He said, I had the two of them, one next to another, and by mistake, I took the wrong one. He says, when I saw it, I nearly died. But like you said, I live far away. I couldn't go back and get it. The same way that we judge other people, HaKadosh Baruch Hu judges us. Very, very important concept. We always have to look, because I'm sure many people were sitting there thinking, can you believe this guy? Can you believe it? On a suit and other clothes, he'll spend a fortune of money. But when it comes to something holy, look at how he behaves. But the answer was, we would have been completely wrong. How do we want HaKadosh Baruch Hu to judge us? Do we want him to judge us favorably? Or do we want him to say, must be he couldn't be bothered buying a new Talit Gadol? We know the answer to that question. Speaking of prayer, it says in the Rabbi Mordechai, going on the end of all those Pesukim that I read to you, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. It says, Rabbeinu the Arizal said that every morning before we pray, we have to love our neighbor like ourselves. We have to say, I love every single Jew like myself. Unbelievable how much I love him. It says, why? The answer is, when you pray in the morning, there is no person alive who can have concentration, the correct kawana from the beginning to the end of the prayer like they're supposed to. Nobody. If you can do it through the Amidah, you're amazing. You try to focus, and all of a sudden, you're halfway through the next bracha, and your mind has gone somewhere else. But somebody somewhere is focusing on the one you're not focusing on. When there is love between the Jewish people, not judging people in a bad way, but loving each other, because these things are all connected, then we become like one. We become unified. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes all the prayers of all the Jews, who are all like one, and takes all the kavanot together and makes a complete prayer. And that's also the importance of praying in a minyan. But here, when you literally love every Jew like yourself, and they love you too, then everything is blended together and we fuse together and we become like one. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes your kawana from here, his from there, that one from there, and it becomes a complete prayer that we've all done. And that is the concept of Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. And it's the same with the study of Torah. It's the same with the study of Torah. If we love each other and we're like one, nobody has studied everything. And nobody understands fully everything. But the Torah that different people have learned gets fused together, and we're all credited as having done it. Only if you didn't go judging your neighbor in a bad way, but on the contrary, you love them like yourself. We've spoken about that topic in the past. I'm not getting into that today. But that is the general point. Now, when Rabbi Akiva said this, he said it's a klal gadol b'Torah. He's quoting the Torah, of course. He didn't say it. He's quoting the Torah. It's a great concept in the Torah. The pasuk ends, "Ve'ahavta re'acha kamocha ani Hashem." I am God. Hashem is the Yod Ke Wav Ke, God's ineffable name. All right. We know the famous gematria that ahava, love, and ehad, one, unity, are the same gematria. We know that. They're both 13. When one person loves another, one Jew loves another, his love is 13, the other Jew's love is 13. 13 plus 13, 26. 26, Shem Hawaya, Yod Ke Wav Ke, God's ineffable name. Ve'ahavta l're'acha kamocha, and you shall love the Lord your God. You love him and he loves you. Ani Hashem. I am God. I am Yod Ke Wav Ke. I am 26. It's a very, very important concept in the Jewish religion, that we love each other as one people. The holy Ben Ish Chai Chacham Yosef Haim Alav Shalom writes, he says, when a person is angry at his neighbor, he's angry at another person, what does it mean? It means he thinks he's better than the other person. You're only angry at another person if I would not have done such a thing. I'm so angry that you did that. I would never behave in such a way. He said, but he should ask himself, am I really better than the other person? Don't I sin to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Don't I constantly do things that God asked me specifically not to do? And what does God do? He loves me. He gives me life. He's merciful to me. If he got angry with me, I'd be in terrible shape. So who on earth am I to get upset and angry at somebody who I feel has done something wrong? He says that is why in the Pesukim, all these famous Pesukim that I'm quoting back and forth that we started the evening with, but it says, Hocheach tocheach et amitecha, you shall surely reproach your neighbor. We translate it as surely reproach, but it's really a double lashon. It says the same word twice. Hocheach tocheach, it means the same thing. He says, why hocheach tocheach? He says, one is to reproach your neighbor when he does something wrong, and the other is you, to reproach yourself. To not think that you're superior, but understand that you've done a lot of things that are wrong, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is being merciful to you because you've been sinning against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm going to end with a story. That's probably one of the favorite words that anyone likes to hear when they come to a lecture. I'm going to end with a story. You know, I think I'm going to trick everybody next time. I'm going to say it at the beginning and then just keep going. The concept of judging others favorably, actually we're told, applies to Hachamim, the righteous Hachamim, more than to anybody else. Not in monetary matters, that's a separate issue, but in general. And how many times have you seen that a person goes to a rabbi for advice, or a rabbi makes a pronouncement and the people say, what does he know? He's got his own reasons for saying that. That's not good. I want to tell you a story. Apparently there was a Jew who lived in a town called Shiraz in a place called Persia. Some of you may have heard of it. I'm not sure. He had an incredible voice. Incredible voice. He was a Hazan. And he also used to sing, do I know, maybe at weddings and this and that and the other. But he was famous. He was famous for his voice. So famous that even the non-Jews knew about it. One day, he's summoned by the ruler and told that in a month from today, I want you to come and sing at the palace. We're having a very major festival. There are going to be all kinds of dignitaries over there, and we want you to come and honor us with your beautiful voice because it's famous. I guess this was a great honor. He says, and make sure that it's something suitable for the festive occasion. Okay, so he gets out his diary, or I don't know if it's an online diary or what they had in those days, I have no idea. He gets out his diary and he's looking at the dates. He says, okay, 1 month over here, let me write down. He goes, oh, that's the night of Tisha B'Av. He says, what am I going to do? I can't tell the ruler that I'm not going to come and sing. What am I going to do? I better ask the Hacham. He goes to the rabbi. He says, Kivod Rabbi, I got a big problem. The ruler, you know the ruler. Oh boy, do you know the ruler. The ruler says, I have to come and sing for him on this day. And you know what it is? It's the night of Tisha B'Av. And he wants me to sing happy songs. So the rabbi says to him, he says, you know what? You have to go. No question, you have to go. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure knowing you. But you're just going to sing kinot. You're going to sing the Tisha B'Av mournful dirges. Echa. He says, oh no, what am I going to do? He goes to his wife, you're not going to believe what the Hacham said. I got to go and I got to sing. It would have been better if I just fled the country. I got to go, I got to sing dirges, and he wants something happy. And all these dignitaries are coming from all over, who knows where. She says, don't go. He said, what do you mean don't go? The Hacham said I have to go, I have to listen to him. She says, why don't you speak to, I don't know, Fred, Joe, your friends? So he goes to Fred, Joe, no, don't go, you got to be out of your mind. You'll be locked up, they'll throw away the key, if you're lucky. Who knows what else they might do? He says, but the Hacham said. He said, I have to do it. The night of Tisha B'Av comes, he goes to the palace with his violin. I said, please, please, everybody's so happy to see him, please sing. He goes up and he starts all his kinot, all the dirges. The people are getting angrier and angrier. They came to celebrate. They didn't understand a word, but they got the message from the tunes and the way he was singing them, and probably crying while he was doing it. Problem was, they looked at the ruler and he was in ecstasy. He was so happy. He was swaying to the music with a smile on his face, maybe a couple of tears coming down his eyes. So they didn't dare say anything. After it was over, the ruler came to him and he said, I want to thank you. He said, I'm so sick of all the same music that they always play at these events. This was the most moving and emotional music I've ever heard. He says, I want you to come once a month and play for me. He says, and I promise you that one day that you play for me every month, I will pay enough money to you for it that will keep you going for the entire month. True story. Lo yimna tov la'olchim betamim. If you go faithfully in his path, God will not prevent good from coming to you. We have to know. By the way, I said it was the last story. I didn't say I'm not going to talk for another half an hour after that. We have to know that every action, like we said before, that we do on earth causes a similar action in heaven. We are in Galut. We are in exile. Why? Because there's no Beit HaMikdash. There's no temple. And why is there no temple? Well, the second temple, the first one got rebuilt, so we don't consider that at the moment. The problem that we face today is the second one. That was Sinat Hinam, baseless hatred. Hating everybody, judging everybody negatively the whole time. You know what that person did? Nasty, no good. I can imagine what they were up to. That's exactly what it is. We have to show HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we love each other. That is what we have to do. We as Jews have to show HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we love each other. I love you, you love me. Rabbeinu the Hida, quoting Yeshayahu, learns out that the Galut is because, as we said, of Sinat Hinam, baseless hatred. But what's significant is, he says that Miswot, doing the precepts, the Miswot, the commandments, is not, I mean, we got to do those too, don't get me wrong, is not what's going to bring the Geulah, is not what's going to bring the redemption. אלא רק האחדות והאהבה האמיתית בין כולכם. The only thing that will bring it is unity and love, true love between all of you, meaning all the Jewish people. That's what the Nabi is saying. That's what the Prophet is saying. That is the only thing that will bring the Geulah, the redemption, after the destruction of the temple. It's my prayer that we first of all will put this into practice. And through that, it'll become, I'm sure other people are all speaking about this, it'll become something that is catching. One person learns from the other, from the other, from the other. When you hear people judging people favorably, you pick up on it. You start doing the same thing. That no good, he didn't. Someone says, no, but maybe it's this, maybe it's that. You start picking up on it. And hopefully we'll have that effect, and hopefully the Jewish people will all understand it, and we'll start loving each other. And for the Zechut HaKadosh Baruch Hu will soon bring us to Kamya Mashiach Tzidkenu Me'kam B'Merav B'Yameinu V'chen Yirasomenu Amen.